You already know this exhaustion, that feeling of everything being on hold, as if you're stuck in an endless hallway with your finger on the call button and no one answering. You check your phone for the 10th time, waiting for a message that never arrives. You go to the mailbox more out of habit than hope, finding the silence of the empty box. There are nights when every minute feels like an eternity, and mornings when the clock seems to mock your waiting. I ask you now, have you ever felt that your prayers are stuck in a celestial traffic jam, with God at the wheel and you not knowing when the line will move? There's a time of day that is particularly cruel, that moment before dawn, when the darkness is thickest and doubt whispers the loudest. You're awake either on your knees or perhaps just with your eyes open on the pillow, and an inner voice insists, maybe he has forgotten, maybe the answer is no forever. This voice uses wounded memories, bills to pay and doors that remain closed to convince you that silence is abandonment. It's there, in that threshold between dark and the first ray of light, that hope can falter. And I see so many people, good believers, prayer warriors, struggling in that early morning, wondering if they should keep crying out or simply accept the weight of no. But what if I told you that this unbearable pressure isn't always a sign of an end? What if what you call despair is actually the labor of the supernatural? Imagine a woman in labor, the most intense contractions, the loudest screams, the greatest fear in the moment just before the newness of life. The pain there doesn't announce death, it announces birth. Often, the climax of anguish is the silent announcement of the miracle that is about to come. The same hand that grips tighter is the one pushing to the next level. In the spiritual realm, there are subtle clues, signposts that only trained eyes can see. It's not always a thundering voice or a smoking stone. Sometimes it's like the smell of rain before a storm. You can't see the clouds yet, but you notice the scent of damp earth, the change in temperature, the wind beginning to whisper through the leaves. I call this spiritual aromas, ethereal fragrances of promise, shy signs announcing that God is moving behind the scenes. It could be a sudden unease in your heart, a recurring dream, a verse that keeps coming back to your mind, or even doors that seem to close strategically to open one you didn't even know existed. If you're tired of interpreting silence as abandonment, take a deep breath now. I want to help you distinguish the silence that heralds departure from the silence that is sacred and preparatory. By the end of this video, you will be able to read the spiritual climate of your life, the difference between a dead-end desert and the anteroom of a miracle. You will learn to hear the signs that the Spirit leaves like breadcrumbs along the way, discreet, but enough for those who are attentive. Before we continue, I want to invite you to do something simple yet intentional, a gesture of faith that declares hope. To connect with us in faith today, type in the comments, "My time has come," and say which city you're watching from. By doing this, you are prophetically opening the door to your answer. It's not just a comment, it's an act of possession. When you publicly declare that your time has come, you are aligning your voice with what heaven is already preparing. There is power in declaration. There is power in caring about your own hope. I know it may seem strange to prophesy over yourself. Many of us were taught to wait humbly, almost in timid silence. But biblical faith often manifests in bold words that confront circumstances. Saying "my time has come" is not arrogance, it's practical faith. It's the gesture of someone who refuses to negotiate with fear. By writing your city, you also create a community. People from different places, united by a common expectation, raising the same plea of faith. Now, just for a moment, close your eyes with me. Or, if you're watching without closing your eyes, simply breathe consciously. Inhale deeply, feeling the air fill your lungs. Exhale, releasing the accumulated tension. Let hope enter again through your pores. Know that the answer you so desire may be closer than your next breath. What follows in this video will give you 7 clear signs so that you can know with more certainty that the turnaround is on its way. Stay with me and listen with an open heart. Have you noticed how God rarely launches something grand without first sending signs? It's not always a booming voice or a light in the sky. Often the warning comes as a subtle change in the atmosphere of your life, a kind of spiritual alert that only trained eyes can see. Think of the prophets in the Bible. It wasn't just the miracle itself, but announcements, premonitions, dreams, and small manifestations that prepared the people for what was to come. Similarly, today, He prepares hearts. If you're attentive, You'll notice that this preparation happens in layers, through clues that walk toward you like footprints in the sand, leading you to the exact point where the answer meets your hands. Now imagine the poetic image of an archer in a plain at dawn. He pulls the bowstring back until the muscles of his body are stretched, until there's an almost unbearable tension. The further back the arrow is drawn, the more force it accumulates, and the farther it will reach. Your waiting, that tension that seems to stretch you to the limit, is exactly what gives momentum to your blessing. It's not meant to break you. It's to transform the energy of your affliction into speed, direction, and power. If you feel under pressure, know that this same pressure may be the propelling force that God is using to catapult your answer toward you. There's a secret spiritual principle that many don't realize because they look for signs only in the obvious. God works through patterns. Just as the seasons announce their changes with visible signs, the yellow of falling leaves announces autumn, the scent of wet earth announces rain, the kingdom of heaven also has seasons and markers. Sometimes he changes the tide in your emotions, other times he alters the relationships around you. Sometimes time itself seems to slow down or speed up inexplicably. These patterns are not coincidences, they are divine guidance. If you learn to read these signs, you'll realize that what seemed random is, in fact, a precise choreography of heaven preparing the stage to fulfill what was promised. Many give up right at the almost. There's a fine line between perseverance and giving up, and sadly many have dug just a few inches less than what the gold required. I remember stories of people who, months before the miracle, were about to abandon everything, jobs, projects, marriages, even faith, just when the provision was about to arrive. Don't let discouragement make you release the bowstring. If you feel like quitting, thank God for that inner click that reminds you, it's almost there. Your time may be just a few heartbeats away, a few words from a phone call, a few hours from an answer that has already been sent in your favor. If lately your life has sounded strange, doors that used to open now creak shut, conversations that cut straight to your wound, a feeling of displacement in your own home, pay close attention. These feelings of disalignment are often the fumes announcing a kitchen about to boil over. When something feels out of place, don't dismiss it as mere coincidence. It may be God rearranging the board so that the right piece falls exactly where it should. Sometimes he interrupts your routine to insist on your dependence. Other times, he pushes you out of comfort so that you can be found by a hand that is coming to meet you. Throughout this video, we will point out 7 clear signs that indicate that God's answer is near. Each sign is like a beacon, a point of light that, when recognized, reduces anxiety and increases faith. Some signs manifest within you, a budding holiness, a sudden calm that doesn't match the circumstances. Others show up externally, unexpected encounters, old promises returning to memory with clarity. Together, these signs form a map. They allow you to distinguish the silence of abandonment from that silence, which is, in fact, the final preparation before the harvest. So hold on tight. Don't let the heat of battle convince you that you've lost. Instead, take a deep breath and let the image of the archer solidify you. The more drawn back it is, the greater the reach of your victory will be. In the next few minutes, I will show you each of these spiritual milestones with examples, analogies, and practical applications so that you can identify with clarity the anteroom of your miracle. If any of these descriptions resonate with your heart, don't dismiss them. Receive them as a note from heaven saying, "Get ready, because the answer is coming." Sign 1. The sudden increase of spiritual battle. There are moments when everything was moving along. You had relative peace and suddenly the ground disappears beneath your feet. The bills that were under control explode. The reputation you've been building comes under attack. The mind that was calm is invaded by fear and anxiety. This is not coincidence. It's the principle of a spiritual law. Just before victory, the battle gets louder. The enemy only spends ammunition where he sees a threat. When your faith begins to align with God's purpose, expect opposition, and sometimes heavy opposition. Think of the scene of the Israelites before the Red Sea. They were trapped. Pharaoh's army was behind them. The sea was in front of them. Those were the worst minutes of their lives. But it was at this point of extreme pressure that the miracle burst forth. The crying turned into celebration, despair became proclamation, and the impossible opened up. The stage for the greatest deliverance was set in the theater of the greatest danger. This is the logic of the kingdom. The peak of trial often heralds the peak of divine intervention. Interpret these intense attacks as alarms, not as definitive sentences. If suddenly hell has risen against your family, finances, or your mind, rejoice in hope. The enemy is investing heavily because he realizes that something has been decreed in your favor. This intensity is the confirmation that your prayer has been received and that a delivery is on the way. In pastoral language, the heat of the oven is rising because the oven needs to reach the right temperature for the bread to rise. Don't run from the fire. Let it fulfill its purpose to purify, refine, and catalyze your promotion. Practical application: when the battle intensifies, don't retreat. React with intentional faith. Elevate your worship, for worship displaces opposing forces. Declare the word with a firm voice. Don't wilt in the face of circumstances. Establish a more intense rhythm of prayer. Hold vigils, call brothers to pray with you, and contradict lies with biblical promises. Remember, the attack is a sign that the answer has been sent. Persevere. Don't give in to the temptation to quit at the almost. The fire didn't come to consume you, but to illuminate the path of your promotion. Sign 2. The death of self-sufficiency. Brokenness. There are turns that only happen when your hands become empty. You try, plan A, plan B, advice from friends, courses, promotions, loans. But there comes a moment when nothing works anymore, and that hurts. Pride breaks, self-confidence shatters. You realize you have no more cards to play. This place of reaching the end of yourself is fertile ground for God's movement. God often waits until our hands are empty to fill them. Imagine someone trying to hold a full jar while someone else tries to pour water into it. Impossible. Only when the jar is empty can the liquid be poured. So it is with God's grace. Only in true emptiness can the supernatural settle. The process is painful because it forces us to abandon our schemes and trust entirely in the one who is the author of provision. Interpret this brokenness as an invitation, not as failure. When you realize you have no more plans B, C, or D, you are in the most privileged place of your spiritual journey, the place where God finds space to act. The end of your human strength is the beginning of God's power. This is not a cliché. It's a reality that transforms stories of liberation, restoration, and multiplication. Practical application: accept the process and take concrete actions of surrender. Stop helping God with band-aid solutions. Make a symbolic gesture of surrender. Write down your frustrated attempts and offer them in prayer. Verbalize your need honestly. Seek the Spirit's direction instead of acting out of anxiety. Cultivate active waiting, not a passive waiting, but a posture that continues to pray, praise, and obey, even without seeing visible movement yet. Ask brothers to walk with you in intercession, and above all, wash your hands of control, open your empty palms, and say, "Lord, I have nothing left, do as you wish." Intermediate conclusion. When these two signs appear together, the external storm intensifying and the internal emptiness settling in, know that you are at a powerful crossroads. The intensified attack is announcing that something has been marked for you. Your brokenness is creating the necessary space for God to place the answer. Don't be afraid. Stand firm in prayer, humble in surrender, and steadfast in the expectation that heaven is already moving. The enemy roars louder because victory is closer. Your end of self is the stage where God's power will become evident. There are moments when the soul begins to stir inside in a new way, not out of fear nor from injected guilt, but from a restlessness that compels to cleansing. This is the third sign, an unusual desire for holiness and cleanliness that suddenly arises. Things you once tolerated and small habits, conversations that burn peace, a glance you knew wasn't good, begin to hurt you differently. It's not just remorse, it's a holy discomfort. It's as if suddenly someone turned on the overhead light and every corner of your spiritual house became evident. Imagine you received an invitation to host a very important person in your home. You start to sweep, wash, and dust the furniture that has been piling up excuses for months. The Holy Spirit works this way in us. He brings the rain of cleansing because the blessing is about to dwell in that space. The analogy is clear. It's not about condemnation, but preparation. God doesn't serve new wine in old wineskins. When He is about to pour something new, He makes sure the vessel is ready to hold what exceeds what you already knew. When this discomfort with sin appears, there's a choice to be made. Many interpret this pain as proof of failure and hide away. But from the kingdom's perspective, this discomfort is God's gentle hand pulling you into the laundry room of the heart. Simple practices help: immediate confession where needed, restitution when possible, cutting access to sources of temptation, and replacing bad habits with spiritual practices, Bible reading, fasting, fellowship with mature brothers. Don't turn this process into self-punishment. Holiness is formed in grace, not in guilt. Your discomfort with sin is not condemnation. It's preparation to be a worthy vessel for the answer that is to come. Let me illustrate with a practical example. A sister shared that in the same week, she began to feel this restlessness. She stopped tolerating small lies she used to tell to avoid conflict. She decided to be transparent, repair relationships, and ask for forgiveness. Days later, she received a promotion at work, and with it, doors of influence that were clearly prepared by her newfound integrity. It wasn't luck, it was divine accommodation. God was adjusting her character to the level of the blessing He had promised. Transition. While God is tidying up the house, He also begins to open the old files of your past. The fourth indication that the answer is near is the sudden remembrance of forgotten promises. Prophetic words you barely remembered, childhood dreams, declarations of faith made in prayer. Everything returns to the surface as if someone dragged an old file to your screen and highlighted it. Execute now. This remembrance is not mere nostalgia. It's the hand of the Lord's timing at work. The metaphor of the file is perfect. There are folders that lie dormant, but the administrator of the universe knows them, and when the time comes, He refocuses them. Perhaps it's that prayer your mother made for you when you were a child. Perhaps it's a vision shared by a pastor years ago. When these memories return, they are not coincidences. They are reminders that the ground has been reserved for you since long ago. God is the guardian of time. Nothing is lost. If He reminded you, it's because He is ready to fulfill. What to do when a forgotten promise reappears? First, register it again. Write down what you remember, words, names, dates, and start praying with that evidence in hand. Look for confirmers. Talk to someone who was with you when the promise was given. Ask for a prophetic word to align your faith. Don't dismiss the remembrance as nostalgia. Treat it as documentation from the kingdom. Second, align your expectation with action. If the promise involved the restoration of a relationship, take the step to reconcile. If it involved a career change, start preparing your resume, networking, or studying. The faith that receives is a faith that moves in obedience. There's comfort here. The remembrance of a promise is, in itself, a confirmation that the divine contract has been signed. Memory is the seal of God's timing opening up. When both things happen, the desire for holiness and the return of old promises, you are being aligned both entirely and temporally. Character is being prepared to carry the calling. History is being remembered so that fulfillment can be recognized. So if you feel these two things now, an urgency for inner cleansing, and at the same time, passages from your life returning like icons on the screen of your heart, celebrate. Don't run to guilt. Run to confession and prophetic action. Clean the house, pour the new wine into renewed wineskins, and take the file that God brought back with firm hands and active faith. Blessing doesn't stumble over mess. It enters where there is order. Prepare to receive, for these signs are not mere human sensitivities. They are the lights of the runway turning on so that the miracle can land. There's a silence that breaks the soul, that emptiness that makes us speak louder, that drives us to chase after human certainties. But there's another silence, deep and disturbing, that is actually beloved and strategic, the silence of God. This is not the silence of abandonment, it's the silence of focus. It's the moment when the Lord holds back words, gathers instructions, and allows the spiritual universe to align before acting publicly. Imagine a classroom on the day of the final exam. The teacher, who throughout the semester explained, corrected, and maintained the pace, now remains silent. He is not distant. He trusts that you have learned. This silence forces you to apply what has been taught, or think of a grand concert. The conductor stops, the orchestra holds its breath, and in that second of suspension, all attention focuses on what is to come, the grand finale. Silence prepares, concentrates, and intensifies. God in His wisdom uses the same principle in the spiritual realm. In practical life, this appears in subtle and even disconcerting ways. You may notice that suddenly God has stopped speaking so clearly about that specific situation. No longer does that guiding voice come, that repeated prophetic word, or that certainty you've been receiving. It's not that he has lost interest, it's that the teaching phase is over. Now it's time for execution. When the carpenter finishes the drawing and puts away the tools for a moment, before making the final blow with the hammer, he is silent. The hammer will only come at the exact moment, and it will fail if used before the proper preparation. How to distinguish this silence from the real feeling of abandonment? First, observe your inner self. If the silence comes accompanied by peace, even amid chaos, it's a strong indication that God is silent for focus. The storm outside may roar louder, but inside you is a tranquil lake. Second, note your faith. If you still believe and still wait with confidence, the silence is likely preparation. If, on the other hand, guilt, confusion, and feelings of abandonment come, it may be a sign that you have drifted away and need to reconcile. Third, look for concrete direction. God's silence often comes after a teaching phase. You have already received instructions, prayed, sought, and now he is silent so that the spiritual process can be sealed. There are everyday examples that illustrate this simply. Remember when you worked so hard on a project that, at the moment before submission, you decided to turn off your phone and focus? The silence was necessary to not disrupt the outcome. Or think of pregnancy. The woman enters the expulsion period and everything becomes more serious. The medical silence, the look of concentration, doesn't mean denial. It means the time has come. God does the same. He intensifies the external environment. The pressure increases, setbacks arise, but at the same time he withdraws the voice so that the final movement from heaven is not contaminated by our anxiety. What to do when you feel this disturbing silence? First, don't fill the silence of God with your panic. Avoid hasty decisions, impulsive changes in direction, or negotiating with fear. Instead, adopt attitudes of active expectation. Continue praying, but change the tone of your prayer from pleading to worship. Praise more, ask less in the moment, thank in advance. Second, maintain obedience in small things, faithfulness in routines, integrity in relationships, holiness in actions. Silence prepares a new level, and God doesn't want to deliver the extraordinary to unprepared hands. Third, document everything. Write down the promises you've already heard, the circumstances that have changed, small signs you've seen. This spiritual journal helps recognize the right time and prevents you from doubting when the voice returns. There are also specific spiritual practices that help during this season. Fasting to sharpen your sensitivity, prayer meetings with brothers to share expectations, fasting from useless news that feeds panic, and declarations of faith based on the word. When the straight sound of the world tries to fill the void, respond with songs, with gratitude and with firmness. Lord, I wait on you. I will not yield to fear. This is the posture that receives the next sound, which usually comes as a thunder of provision, a call, or the arrival of the right people. Keep this phrase in mind. Don't fill the silence of God with your panic. Wait. Silence is the last beat before the symphony. And when God raises his hand, the noise that will come will not just be an answer. It will be a proclamation. So if you find yourself in a moment of strange quiet, take a deep breath, maintain your faith, and prepare yourself. The calm that now tightens your chest is the press that will extract the new from your destiny. The next sound you will hear will be the sound of the rain of blessings pouring down on your life. There are moments when God's plan doesn't descend from heaven like a direct lightning bolt, but as a chain of hands, people being moved, conversations happening, seemingly casual encounters that are actually points of delivery in the divine script. This is sign 6, a supernatural connection with other people, what many call a divine setup. Suddenly you start bumping into the right people. The word you needed to hear comes from the mouth of a stranger on the bus. A wrong number call leads you to an opportunity. A distant friend remembers you at just the right moment. It's not luck, it's heavenly logistics. Think of Ruth. She didn't accidentally end up in Boaz's field. There was a providential movement behind every step she took, leaving Moab working in the fields, choosing that place. God orchestrated faces, words, circumstances, so that the blessing would come through a person. In the same way, your answer may be arriving through someone God is positioning right now. Imagine a delivery conveyor belt. What you asked of the Lord has been packaged in heaven, labeled with your name, and now the delivery system is in operation. Every person who crosses your path could be a deliverer, a messenger, an instrument, a contact holding the key to the next chapter. So when relational coincidences start happening, rejoice. God's distribution center has begun to move in your favor. How to recognize and act on these divine setups? First, be attentive. Often we miss the blessing because we were distracted, our heads full, or prideful. Observe small synchronicities, someone mentioning your problem, doors opening in conversations, unexpected invitations. Don't dismiss coincidences. Ask the Holy Spirit for eyes to see and ears to hear. Pray, Lord, open my eyes to the people you are bringing to me. Second, be available. God uses people who are ready to speak, to listen, and to act. This means keeping your life tidy enough to receive a call, a meeting, a visit. It means having a hospitable heart, accepting a coffee with a stranger, offering a minute of your time, responding to a message you could ignore. Sometimes the reception is as simple as saying yes when the heavenly delivery system asks you to be present. Third, prepare yourself. If God is going to deliver something through people, He may use practical situations, a job interview, a church meeting, a work lunch. Take care of your testimony, wear integrity, be ready to share what God has done for you. Be clear, sincere, and brief when sharing your need. Often the answer lies in the simplicity of an honest conversation. Fourth, don't neglect the power of the network. Spiritual relationships are channels for transmitting blessings. Pray for your contacts, send a word of encouragement, maintain connections. As you pray, ask God for doors and people, specific names, places, and contacts, and then be ready to act when He moves someone toward you. Sometimes, what's lacking is your response to the call to connect. Fifth, practice immediate gratitude. When a conversation or encounter points to the answer, give thanks. Show recognition. Gratitude unlocks continuity. Those used by God to bless you need to know that the help was effective. This opens space for the Lord to continue working through that person and others. Sixth, test wisely. Not every coincidence is God's voice. Use the Spirit as a filter. Ask if the situation aligns with the Word, if it brings peace to your heart, if there is spiritual fruit. Seek discernment. An encounter can be providential and still come with practical lessons. Not everything God allows is automatically what you desire without preparation. Finally, act with faith and readiness. Many people miss miracles by thinking, "It's not the moment," or "I'm not ready." When connections start multiplying, take simple steps of obedience. Respond, go, talk, accept. Your human response to the divine arrangement is often what releases the blessing visibly. So don't minimize relational coincidences. Don't dismiss a word that touched you in an elevator. Don't ignore an apparently small invitation. God uses the human face to materialize the supernatural. When you start noticing these small alignments, know that the heavenly delivery system is working in your favor, and the answer to your prayer may already be on the lips of a stranger, in the hand of a friend, or in the message you haven't opened yet. Be attentive, be available, and receive with gratitude. The next step may come through someone God placed exactly in your path. The seventh sign is the most precious and discreet, the peace that surpasses all understanding. While your whole world may seem like a hurricane, piled up bills, bad news, critical voices, closing doors, something inside you quiets like a lake at dawn. It's not an apathetic resignation, nor a denial of problems. It's an internal certainty so deep that your emotions cease to dictate your faith. You stop praying with trembling hands, pleading frantically, and start praying with uplifted hands and a grateful heart. The prayer shifts from "please God" to "thank you God." Imagine you hold a winning ticket in your hands, a ticket that confirms that victory has already been paid for by God, but the payment hasn't yet appeared in the bank of your life. You haven't cashed the money yet, but the anxiety of poverty disappears because you know with conviction that it's just a matter of time until the vaults open. This peace is God's signature on the spiritual contract of your life, something signed by Him. Now it's just a matter of physical delivery. In Philippians 4:7, Paul speaks of this peace that guards our hearts and minds. It's not theory. It's a presence that calms internal storms. See the difference between this peace and a false tranquility. A false peace tries to pretend that everything is fine, while the peace that surpasses understanding acknowledges the gravity of circumstances but doesn't allow gravity to have the final word. Jesus slept in the boat during the storm. He knew who was in the boat. Paul and Silas sang in prison and even in chains had a song of freedom on their lips. These biblical scenes show us that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of God above the problem. How to know if this peace you feel is truly a sign that the answer is coming? Observe some practical signs. First, your sleep improves, not because the bills have disappeared, but because anxiety has been replaced by trust. You wake up lighter. Second, your words change. You begin to declare gratitude and prophecies of victory out loud, as if you were already reaping the fruit. Third, your body responds. Less tension in your shoulders, more energy, a deeper breath. Fourth, your courage increases. You make decisions you wouldn't have dared before, speak the truth in love, and expose yourself to the risk of moving forward without being paralyzed by fear. Another mark of this peace is active patience. It's not waiting passively, it's waiting while working, but without panic. You continue doing what needs to be done, paying rent, preparing your resume, going to interviews, but without the desperation that freezes creativity. Instead of asking what is lost in my life, your question becomes, how can I prepare the ground to receive what is already coming? Peace straightens priorities. You take care of your inner self first because you understand that the external harvest depends on the quality of the spiritual soil. Relationships also change. People around you notice that something different inhabits you. They feel that you are no longer on the defensive. You've gained a prophetic posture. Sometimes someone will open up with a word. An unexpected connection happens, and the answer materializes as a reflection of that inner peace you've already received. This peace acts like a magnet. It attracts blessings, doors, and prophetic words. It's not magic, it's spiritual authority born from trust. But be careful. This peace also needs to be guarded. Don't let your spirit enter speculation mode. When thoughts of doubt arise, respond with acts of gratitude. Declare the truths you know, promises God has already given you, testimonies you have already lived. Protect this tranquil lake with limits on exposure to news and conversations that drag you back into panic. Cultivate the habit of thanking in advance. This is not pretending, it's aligning your faith with the reality of heaven. Be honest with yourself. The peace that surpasses understanding can come softly, like a whisper, or dramatically, like a fire that consumes all fear. Either way, when it arrives, know that it is more than comfort. It is confirmation. It's the divine signature. The spiritual transaction is complete. The physical delivery is a matter of human timing. If this peace has touched your heart recently, prepare yourself. You are days, perhaps hours from your turnaround. Stand firm, give thanks, guard what has been given to you, and don't waste this season with anxiety. Peace is not just a pleasant feeling. It's God's seal on your waiting. When it rests upon you, lift your eyes, adjust your faith, and wait with joy. The answer is already on its way. If you've made it this far, I want to acknowledge something very real. Your heart is hungry for God, and your eyes are attentive to the movement of heaven. You are not a passive spectator. You are a warrior of prayer. This place of spiritual sensitivity is not weakness. It's fertile ground where God loves to sow answers. Allow me to validate what you already know deep down. Waiting does not disqualify you. It prepares you. Now let's recap with clarity and rhythm what the Spirit has been whispering to your soul. Repeat with me in thought, as if affirming a prophecy over your own life. Intense battle. When the war increases, victory is near. Remember the moment the sea opened, the cry made heaven act. End of self-sufficiency. When your hands are empty, God's are ready to fill. Dependence is the place where God's power manifests. Desire for holiness. When old habits begin to discomfort, it's because the dwelling of blessing is being prepared. Activated memory. Old promises resurface like records being reopened by the administrator of heaven. Testing silence. That silence that seems empty is, in fact, the concentration before the great act. Divine connections. People and doors begin to align miraculously. The heavenly transport is working. Supernatural peace. Even in external chaos, your inner self becomes a tranquil lake, proof that the spiritual transaction has already been made. Each of these signs is like a note in a celestial song announcing the arrival of the answer. Put the notes together and you'll have the melody of God's movement in your life. I want to speak to you who have thought about giving up. The worst thing you can do now is to dig and bury God's request in disbelief. Don't interrupt the labor process when the head of the miracle is about to be born. Many stories of victory have been lost because the believer gave up at the almost. Hold on tight. Push with the last drop of faith that remains. Work in spiritual labor. Push one prayer then another until the answer breaks through. If you identified any of these signs, even just one, I want you to take a public action now in faith. Write in the comments, "I receive my answer." Declare it. Take possession. When you profess credibility, you mobilize the kingdom, and there is power in words aligned with faith. Don't let this moment pass just as a feeling. Transform it into confession. And if today you decide to commit to this new posture of trust, also ask, tag someone who needs to hear this message. Share this video in the family group. Send it to a friend who is feeling down. Be an instrument. Often God delivers the answer through your courage to share hope. Before you go, I want to ask 3 simple things. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video that will teach you to live this promise concretely. Like this content so that the platform shows this word to more people who are almost giving up. And share now. Don't let another warrior miss the turnaround for lack of a timely word. Now, pause everything for a moment. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Feel God's presence where you are, not as a distant idea, but as a warm touch on your chest. Let the Holy Spirit confirm what I said. If any sign echoed in you, He is on the move. Receive this confirmation as a warmth that invades and calms. Next, I want to bless you with prophetic words. May the God who works with precision turn your waiting into testimony. May the small cloud of hope move and pour abundant rain over your dryness. Where there has been loss, may restitution come. Where there has been frustration, may celebration come. Where there has been doubt, may conviction come. May the Lord grant you the courage to stand firm until the end, faith to declare, and a mouth to thank in advance. Receive this declaration. Your waiting has been recognized in heaven. The answer has been designed, stamped, and is on its way. Walk with eyes attentive to the signs, with ears tuned to the whisper of God, and with hands ready to receive. Go in peace, knowing that you are not alone and that divine movement works in your favor. Stay alert to the signs. Your answer is coming. God bless you.